The message you hear today is not just for today, but for the path ahead. Each day arrives not as a repetition of the past, but as a gate that opens into the unknown. The path ahead is invisible, yet shaped by the way we walk now. Most people live as if life happens only in front of their eyes, but the wise know life unfolds within. When God speaks today, His message is never small. It is not for your momentary satisfaction, your temporary mood, or fleeting emotion. It is a seed planted for the path ahead, for the terrain of tomorrow. However, only the still, the attentive, and the aware will recognize this. Just as only those who still their breath can hear the rhythm of their heart, only those who calm their mind can truly hear when the divine speaks. People often look for dramatic signs. They want booming voices, flashing miracles, or sudden shifts. But God's wisdom does not compete with the chaos of the world. It speaks through the silence beneath all movement. There is something sacred about recognizing that the message you hear today may not be understood immediately, that it may unfold over weeks, over months, or even years. That is the nature of divine timing. And so, one must become patient, rooted like a tree that grows without rushing. For when God speaks, He speaks not to where you stand, but to where you are meant to go. Most people misunderstand time. They think that today is only about today. They think that what is said in this moment must be applied instantly. But the mind must evolve to understand the layers of a single word from the divine. When a sacred teaching enters your life, it doesn't just echo in the air. It penetrates your being. It awakens something dormant inside you, but it can only do so if you allow yourself to listen, not just with the ears, but with the whole body, the whole breath, the entire presence of your awareness. To hear God today is not about religion nor belief. It is about alignment. You don't need to belong to a system to be aligned with truth. Truth is like sunlight, it falls on everyone, but only those who open the window can feel its warmth. And so when you hear that God speaks today, ask yourself, am I listening through an open window, or is my mind still closed by distractions, assumptions, and fear? In the Shaolin tradition, every movement is sacred, every breath is conscious, every moment is a doorway to transformation. But that doorway cannot be opened unless you become still. Not stagnant, but still. Still like a mountain that watches the clouds pass by without reacting. If you can cultivate that stillness today, the message from the divine will not just pass through you, it will become part of you. We are trained in society to chase after answers. We seek clarity, solutions, predictions. But when God speaks, He does not offer all the answers at once. He offers a direction, a spark, a shift in your awareness. It is subtle, not loud, profound but quiet. Only those who have trained their attention can capture. That is why mental discipline is spiritual discipline. That is why the preparation of the mind is not just helpful, it is necessary. Imagine walking in a fog. Ahead of you something is glowing. It is not yet fully visible, but it draws you forward. You don't run, you move with care. That glowing presence is like today's message from God. It is not here to be consumed quickly. It is here to draw you into deeper awareness, to make you pay attention, to ask you, how do you move when you cannot see clearly? How do you listen when nothing is being shouted? How do you prepare yourself for a journey whose destination is not revealed? To hear God today is not the end of something, it is the beginning. But if your mind is full of past noise, old pain, and outdated beliefs, you will misinterpret the message. You will twist it into something convenient rather than something true. That is why silence is powerful. That is why meditation is not optional. It is the foundation. Only in silence can you receive without distortion. Only in inner stillness can you recognize the real from the false. So when you hear something today that seems like it could be from the divine, ask yourself, am I hearing through a mind that is clean, or one that is clouded? The path ahead does not need to be revealed all at once. It is revealed step by step, and the first step is to recognize the importance of preparation. You cannot pour clear water into a dirty cup and expect to drink purity. Likewise, divine guidance cannot enter a mind that is constantly reacting, judging, or consumed by fear. If you are to receive truth today, your first task is to clean the vessel, to prepare the soil of your being, to let go of what is no longer needed, to clear away the dead leaves of your thinking. Only then can the seed of the message find root. You must not expect the message to sound like something new. Often it will feel familiar, not because you've heard it before, but because your soul already knows it. The divine does not always teach. Sometimes it reminds. Sometimes it awakens what you have forgotten. Today's message may simply be a reawakening of who you already are. But to recognize this, you must stop trying to become someone else. You must listen with the heart of who you truly are. Not the version you perform for others, not the mask you wear for safety, but the original self, beneath all layers. The power of today is not in what happens around you, it is in what you do with what happens within you. When you receive even one sentence from the divine, treat it as sacred. Reflect on it. Sit with it. Do not rush to interpret or explain. Let it settle in your breath. Let it travel through your body. Let it become part of how you walk, how you speak, how you meet the world. If you treat God's message lightly, it will not penetrate deeply. But if you treat it with reverence, it will grow within you like a living tree, bearing fruit over time. Sometimes the most profound message is not in words. It is in the space between the words, in the moment of silence after you hear the truth. That is when your spirit reacts. That is when the real transformation begins. If you always look for stimulation, you will miss the silence. And without silence, you will miss the essence. Do not look for entertainment in the sacred. Look for truth. Look for alignment. Look for presence. To prepare your mind is to empty it of clutter. To prepare your mind is to make it receptive, like a calm lake that can reflect the sky. You cannot see the reflection of the stars in turbulent water. Likewise, you cannot perceive divine insight in a mind that is rushing, grasping, or afraid. Slow down, breathe, become aware of your body, feel the ground beneath you. Recognize this moment as not just another day, but as a gate, a portal to something greater than you have ever imagined. There will be resistance. The mind will tell you that this message is too vague, too abstract. But wisdom is not given in straight lines. It is given in patterns, in symbols, in silence. If you are looking only with logic, you will miss the spiritual. You must look with the eyes of the heart. You must feel with your breath. You must allow yourself to be moved without knowing exactly where you are going. That is faith, not blind belief, but the inner trust that what is unfolding has purpose, even if the map is not in your hands yet. Today, the divine may be speaking to you through something small, a sentence, a coincidence, a passing feeling. Pay attention. Do not dismiss it. That moment may contain the seed of your next transformation. The smallest spark can light the entire forest if it lands on the right ground. Be that ground. Be ready. Do not wait for confirmation from others. Do not seek validation. You will know the truth, not because someone tells you, but because your soul recognizes it. That is the essence of inner clarity. This message is not for yesterday. It is not just for now. It is the beginning of something greater. You will carry it into your choices, into your relationships, into your decisions. The way you walk today, after hearing this message, will shape how your future unfolds. If you walk with awareness, with humility, with courage, then no matter how uncertain the road, you will walk in alignment with the truth, and that is all that matters. So when God speaks today, do not rush to act. First, become still. Listen deeply. Let the message move through you like breath. Let it touch the parts of you that no one else sees. Let it dissolve the fear, the doubt, the impatience, Then carry it forward, not as a weight, but as a light. Let it guide your next step. Let it become the inner compass that keeps you centered even when the world spins around you. This is the path. This is the way of the awakened. This is the teaching of the ancient masters and the whisper of the divine. The message you hear today is not just for today. It is for the path ahead. Walk it well. In this fast-moving world, we have become conditioned to noise. We chase answers. We pursue achievements. We seek validation. Yet the great paradox of life is this: the deepest truths are not found in movement, but in stillness. When you stop running, when you quiet the noise around and within you, something ancient begins to speak. Not in language, not in volume, but in presence. This is why stillness is not an escape. Stillness is the way. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of awareness. It is not the lack of activity. It is the fullness of attention. When God speaks, it is not to compete with the loudness of the world. The divine does not need to raise its voice. It waits. It waits until you are silent enough to hear. That is why the spiritual path always begins with silence. Meditation is not a practice of emptying the mind. It is a practice of remembering the space from which all wisdom comes. When you wake in the morning, do you listen before you act? Do you pause before you speak? Do you sit with yourself before facing the world? These questions are not trivial. They define whether you walk through the day guided by wisdom or by habit. God speaks today, but not to the loud, not to the rushing, not to the distracted. God speaks to the quiet heart, to the still soul, to the one who has chosen presence over reaction. In the Shaolin tradition, before a warrior trains his body, he must discipline his mind. Before he moves with strength, he must sit with stillness. This is because true power is not found in force, but in clarity. The mind that has not tasted stillness will always act from chaos. It will react, defend, judge, and assume. But the mind that has entered silence becomes like calm water. It reflects truth. It receives light. It reveals what is hidden. Stillness is a gateway. It opens a different kind of perception. In stillness, time slows down. And in that slowing, you begin to feel the heartbeat of life itself. You begin to sense the subtle, the energy behind words, the intention behind actions, the lesson behind the challenge. You no longer chase meaning, you perceive it. You no longer force understanding, you allow it to arise. When God speaks through stillness, it is not with commandments, it is with invitations. An invitation to notice, an invitation to surrender, an invitation to trust. But these invitations can only be received when your mind is quiet enough to recognize them. Think of it like tuning a radio. The signal is always broadcasting, but unless you tune your frequency correctly, all you hear is static. Stillness is the tuning. It aligns your awareness with the divine frequency. There is an ancient saying, be still and know. Not think, not analyze, not strive, but know. Knowing arises from stillness. When you are still, you drop below the surface of your thoughts and enter the ocean of intuition. This is not the mind that processes, it is the mind that perceives. It is the clarity that sees without needing to define, and in that perception, the voice of God becomes unmistakable, not because it shouts, but because your soul recognizes its tone. When you practice stillness, you are not doing nothing, you are preparing everything. You are cleaning the windows of perception. You are grounding your energy. You are creating space for wisdom to enter. And most importantly, you are showing the divine that you are ready, not to receive answers that please your ego, but truth that transforms your being. This readiness is not shown in rituals. It is shown in presence, in openness, in the sacred pause between breath in and breath out. Many people ask, why do I not hear God? Why do I not receive signs? The answer is simple, yet confronting, because they have not become still. They are listening with ears, not with awareness. They are waiting for external miracles, while the internal miracle is already available. But it takes courage to be still. Because in stillness, you meet yourself. All the layers, all the shadows, all the distractions fall away, and you face your truth. And this meeting is where transformation begins. Stillness is not always comfortable, especially at first. The mind resists it. It wants to move, to solve, to distract. But the discomfort is part of the purification. When you sit in silence and allow everything to rise, fear, anxiety, desire, you are creating space for healing. You are no longer running from yourself. You are sitting with what is. And in doing so, you become aligned with the rhythm of life, with the pulse of the universe, with the whispers of God. The greatest teachings in life are not spoken. They are felt. They arise when the mind stops controlling and starts surrendering. When you let go of needing to understand everything, you begin to receive what you truly need. Stillness is the posture of humility. It says, I do not know, but I am open to knowing. It says, I will not force the answer, but I will become the space in which the answer can arrive. You must understand, divine wisdom is never far. It is always here, always available, always reaching toward you. But like light passing through a lens, if the lens is fogged, the light cannot reach clearly. Your mind is that lens. And stillness is how you polish it. Each breath you take in awareness is a cleansing. Each moment you sit without distraction is a preparation. Each second you give to silence is an offering to the sacred. When you sit in stillness long enough, something beautiful happens. The noise inside you begins to soften, the questions lose their urgency, the fears lose their grip, and beneath it all, a quiet knowing begins to emerge. It doesn't shout, it simply is. You realize that what you were looking for outside has always lived inside. You realize that God's voice was never missing. It was simply drowned out by your own. This realization changes everything. There is a reason that every spiritual master, every mystic, every awakened soul speaks of silence. Because they know that the real wisdom cannot be taught. It can only be revealed. And it is revealed in the sacred space of stillness. This is not a metaphor. This is not poetic. It is practical, real, and repeatable. You do not need special gifts to hear God. You need presence. You need commitment. You need the discipline to return to silence again and again until silence becomes your home. When you walk into the forest, you do not hear noise, you hear presence. The rustling of leaves, the movement of air, the breath of nature, all of it happens in stillness. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. This is how the divine moves, without rush, without panic, without struggle. When you sit in stillness, you are returning to that original rhythm. You are aligning with the universal flow. Stillness does not mean withdrawal. It does not mean you isolate yourself or become passive. It means that even in action, you remain centered. Even in movement, you remain anchored. Stillness is not a place you go. It is a way you live. It is the foundation beneath all your choices. It is the silence that remains, even when the world around you becomes loud. So when you are told that God speaks today, remember, it is not about whether the message is being sent. It is about whether you are still enough to receive it. And the more you cultivate this stillness, the clearer the messages will become. You will begin to feel guided, not just sometimes, but always. You will begin to sense alignment, even when you do not understand. You will begin to move with trust, because the voice that speaks in stillness will become familiar. Do not wait for the world to become quiet. It never will. Create quiet within yourself. Make time for silence. Protect your peace. Sit daily in stillness, even if just for a few minutes. Not to escape life, but to deepen your connection to it. In that space, say nothing, ask nothing. Simply listen, and you will notice that the answers you were seeking begin to rise, not as noise, but as clarity. Not as command, but as knowing. This is the wisdom of the divine. This is the gift of stillness. Stillness is the most courageous act you can take in a world that worships noise. It is the most radical decision you can make in a society that rewards distraction. But it is in this act that the sacred becomes available, not as a theory, not as a belief, but as a direct experience. In stillness, you will know who you are. In stillness, you will know what is real. In stillness, you will hear what God has always been saying. I am here. I have never left. You were just too loud to notice. Return to the still point. Let it become your home. Let it become the temple in which you meet the divine each day. And from that temple, walk into the world, not seeking truth, but embodying it. This is the way of the awakened. This is the practice of the present. This is the channel through which divine wisdom enters. When a student once approached a master with questions, the master poured tea into the student's cup and kept pouring even after it overflowed. Confused, the student asked why he would keep pouring. The master replied, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and assumptions. How can I show you truth unless you first empty your cup?" This ancient story is not just about tea, it is about ego. The ego is the fullness that blocks receptivity. It is the inner voice that says, I already know, I already understand, I already see. But truth is not interested in how much you know. Truth enters only when there is space for it. And that space is created when the ego is humbled, softened, empty. Most people do not live in truth. They live in the image of what they believe truth should be. Their beliefs are inherited, their opinions are second-hand, and their worldview is filtered through layers of identity. Yet they are convinced that what they hold is real. This is the danger of an unexamined ego. It convinces you that you are awake, even as you sleepwalk through life. When God speaks today, the question is not whether you will hear. The question is whether there is enough space within you to receive. That space is not physical, it is energetic. It is created through humility, through surrender, through the willingness to admit that maybe, just maybe, what you have clung to is no longer serving your growth. The ego hates this idea. It resists emptiness. It clings to control. It builds walls of certainty to protect itself from the unknown. But the unknown is where truth lives. You cannot carry yesterday's conclusions into tomorrow's awakening. You must be willing to let go, to dissolve, to stand in the presence of mystery and say, I do not know. That is not weakness, it is spiritual strength. It is the beginning of real seeing. For as long as you are full of your own voice, the voice of the divine will remain distant, like a whisper carried by the wind. But once you fall silent, that whisper becomes thunder within your soul. The ego is not evil. It is simply afraid. It is a defense mechanism built from past experiences. It fears being wrong, being rejected, being powerless. So it builds stories, identities, and illusions. And it defends those illusions at all costs, even if it means shutting out the truth that could set you free. The path of awakening is not about destroying the ego. It is about seeing through it, about recognizing its voice without obeying it, about creating enough inner space to choose differently. When you begin to empty the cup of ego, you will feel discomfort, you will feel uncertainty, and that is how you know you are on the right path. Certainty is often the mask that ignorance wears. But humility opens the door to revelation. The empty cup is not a lack, it is a readiness. It says to the universe, I am available. Teach me, transform me, show me what I could not see. In the Shaolin way, the first discipline is not physical, it is mental. Before a student is given a weapon, he must disarm the mind. Before he is trusted with power, he must show purity of intention. And that purity cannot exist alongside arrogance. A filled ego is like a clenched fist. It cannot receive anything. But a humble spirit is like an open hand, ready to receive, to learn, to evolve. So ask yourself, what are you holding on to that prevents your growth? What identities, beliefs, or opinions are you afraid to question? What would happen if you became empty, not of worth, but of self-importance? You would begin to see, you would begin to listen, you would begin to feel a truth beyond logic, a knowing that cannot be explained, only lived. There is a reason why so many spiritual teachings emphasize surrender. Because truth is not something you conquer, it is something you are revealed to once you stop trying to control. The more you grasp, the more you push it away. But the moment you release, the moment you bow, the moment you say, I am ready to be shown, something shifts. The veil lifts, the heart opens, the sacred enters. This emptiness is not passive, it is not helpless, it is powerful, it is like the open sky, vast, clear, and capable of receiving the full light of the sun. The ego wants to be the sun, but the soul understands that its role is to receive light, to reflect it, to embody it. You are not here to become something in the eyes of the world. You are here to become nothing in the eyes of your ego, so you can become everything in alignment with truth. What happens when you empty the cup of ego? You become available for transformation. You no longer resist change, you invite it. You no longer defend your position, you seek alignment. You no longer argue to win, you listen to understand. And in that shift, life begins to speak to you in new ways. A leaf falling becomes a lesson. A silence becomes a song. A coincidence becomes confirmation. This is the magic of emptiness. It turns the ordinary into sacred ground. When you live from ego, everything becomes personal. You are constantly reacting, defending your pride, protecting your image, comparing yourself to others. But when you empty the ego, you step out of reaction and into response. You no longer seek validation. You no longer fear judgment. You move from a place of peace, not performance, from presence, not panic. And this is when God begins to move through you, not as a separate being, but as your very essence. You become a vessel, a conduit, a bridge between the visible and the invisible. Not because you have become great, but because you have become empty enough to let greatness pass through. This is why the most powerful souls often appear simple. They do not announce themselves. They do not need to. Their presence speaks louder than their words. Their silence teaches more than their speeches, because they have emptied themselves of ego, and in doing so, they have become truth itself. It is not enough to hear about this. You must live it. You must practice it. Begin each day with the intention to empty, not to devalue yourself, but to dissolve the false layers. Catch your ego when it rises, when it wants to be right, to be praised, to be seen. Pause, breathe, ask, what is needed right now? Truth or validation? Choose truth. And in choosing truth, you water the seed of freedom. There is no greater freedom than the freedom from ego. No greater strength than the strength of humility. No greater wisdom than the wisdom of emptiness. This is the path walked by the sages, the monks, the awakened. It is not glamorous, it is not loud, but it is real, and it is available to you now, in this moment, if you are willing to pour out the contents of your cup and say, teach me, use me. When God looks upon you, He is not impressed by how much you know, He is drawn to how open you are. Your openness is your readiness, your humility is your power, your emptiness is your capacity. This is why, when you feel lost, it may actually be the beginning of being found. When you feel broken, it may be the moment where the light enters. And when you feel nothing, it may be the space from which everything will emerge. When everything will have turned, it may be the space from which everything will emerge. The ego fears this emptiness. It says, who am I? Without my opinions, without my titles, without my image. But the soul knows you are not the contents of the cup. You are the space within it. And the more space you have, the more truth you can hold, not just intellectually, but energetically, as breath, as being, as a way of walking through the world. You do not need to prove anything to be worthy of truth. You do not need to perform. You only need to be sincere. Sincerity is the true mark of readiness. And when the universe feels your sincerity, it responds, not always with lightning, sometimes with a whisper, sometimes with a moment, sometimes with a shift so subtle that only the still and the empty can recognize it. So do not fear the emptying. It is sacred, it is necessary, and it is the way. You must empty the cup of ego before truth can be poured in. There is a strange truth in life. We are constantly searching for what has already arrived. We pray for signs, we ask for guidance, we seek messages from above. But the more we search, the more we overlook. We look for divine signals in the clouds while ignoring the ground beneath our feet. We want a voice from the heavens, but neglect the whisper that already lives inside the present moment. What we are waiting for is not in some distant tomorrow. It is here. It has always been here, but we are too distracted to see it. The divine does not always speak through thunder. Often, it speaks through what we dismiss as ordinary. It speaks through the rhythm of your breath, through the tension in your body, through the stranger who smiled at you in silence, through the delay you did not expect, through the quiet that made you uncomfortable. Every moment is a carrier of a sacred message, but only if we are humble and present enough to receive it. That's the key, presence. We spend our days thinking that meaning lives in the future, that one day something significant will arrive and finally change us. But life is not preparing to give you a message. It is already giving it. Now, in this breath, in this step, in this silence. The question is not, when will the message come? The question is, why have I not yet seen that it is already here? The answer to your longing, the direction you seek, the confirmation you crave. These are not waiting in some far-off event. They are hidden in the moment you are currently ignoring. Why do we ignore the present? Because the ego doesn't find it interesting. It wants drama, noise, future promises. It chases excitement and rejects stillness. It seeks fulfillment in the abstract and refuses to honor what is already unfolding. But the soul is different. The soul is not impressed by intensity. It is awakened by authenticity. It does not require a spectacular moment. It simply needs your full attention to the moment that is already happening. You wake up in the morning. You feel a resistance to begin the day. That resistance is a message, not something to suppress, but something to understand. You go outside and feel a cool breeze touch your face. That sensation is a message, reminding you to slow down. You feel irritated by someone's comment. That irritation is a message, revealing where you are still reactive. But we do not listen. We label, we judge, we rush through, and in doing so, we become deaf to the language of the divine. The Shaolin path trains one not only to master external form, but to develop deep inner awareness. A true practitioner learns to see the invisible patterns in the visible world. A flicker of emotion, a shift in breath, a glance from a teacher. These are messages, and if missed, the lesson is delayed, not because the message is gone, but because the student was not yet present enough to receive it. Life is your teacher. Every moment is a lesson. Every situation is an invitation, and the invitation is always the same. Will you wake up now? When God speaks, it is often through what feels like interruption. The delay, the detour, the closed door, the unexpected encounter. We resist these moments, not realizing that they are divine appointments in disguise. We say this shouldn't be happening, but life whispers, this is exactly what you need to see. The moment you are resisting is often the moment that holds the key to your transformation, but it takes humility to stop running and courage to turn toward what you would rather avoid. The ordinary is sacred. This is a truth most people miss. They wait for signs in the sky, while the sacred stares at them through their morning coffee, through their partner's eyes, through the ache in their chest that they refuse to feel. You cannot receive what you are not willing to feel. You cannot decode what you are not willing to honor. Every moment, no matter how mundane, contains the potential for revelation, if you are willing to stop, breathe, and be with it fully. Think of the breath. It is always with you. You cannot see it, but it gives you life. Inhalation, exhalation. A rhythm older than your thoughts. And yet how often do you truly feel it? How often do you give it your full attention? That breath is not just biological, it is spiritual. It is a constant message from life itself, reminding you, you are here, you are alive, you are part of something greater. The breath doesn't ask for anything, it only asks you to return to it. And in doing so, you return to yourself. You are not disconnected from guidance, you are disconnected from awareness. You are not waiting for a message, the message is waiting for you to listen. And listening is not about your ears, it's about your presence. Your full engagement with what is. Not with what should be, not with what was, but with what is. God does not hide answers from you. God places them where you will eventually find them, inside your direct experience. But because we are taught to value the distant more than the near, we overlook the obvious. We complicate the simple. We spiritualize the physical and forget that the physical is already sacred. The lesson you are looking for is not in another book, another video, another teacher. It is right here, in this moment, in this feeling, in this breath. But you must be here to find it. How many times have you asked for clarity while ignoring the discomfort in your body? That discomfort is not separate from the answer. It is the answer. How often have you begged for a sign while dismissing the quiet pull in your chest toward a certain action? That pull is not confusion, it is guidance. You do not need more signs, you need more stillness. You need more willingness to honor what you already know, but have not yet trusted. There is a practice in the ancient paths, mindful walking. With each step, the practitioner says silently, I have arrived. Not physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. They walk slowly, not to reach a destination, but to recognize that the destination is this step, this moment, this breath. This is the secret. Once you truly arrive in the present, the answers become obvious. Not because they change, but because you finally noticed them. You are not stuck. You are not abandoned. You are simply not present. In the moment you return to the now, life opens its hand. What was hidden becomes revealed. What was confusing becomes simple. What felt like silence becomes song. But this shift requires more than attention. It requires reverence. You must honor the moment, not as a stepping stone, but as the sanctuary in which your transformation begins. We often say, I will be grateful once I understand, but it is the other way around. Gratitude is what creates understanding. When you bow to this moment, no matter how messy, no matter how unclear, you begin to see its perfection. The pieces align, the message is revealed. You do not need to fix the moment. You need to meet it fully, lovingly, patiently. Think of how many moments you've rushed through, how many conversations you didn't fully hear, how many meals you didn't truly taste, how many sunsets you ignored while scrolling through a screen. And yet, you ask where the magic is. The magic was in the moment you skipped. The answer was in the place you rushed past. The divine was there, and it is still here, waiting. Not to punish you, but to remind you that life is always now, and now is where the sacred lives. When you slow down enough to feel the moment, you begin to realize that everything is connected. The conversation you had yesterday is linked to the dream you had last night. The hesitation you felt this morning is connected to the decision you need to make. Life is not random. It is woven together with invisible threads. And the more present you become, the more you see the tapestry, the more you trust it, the more you allow it to guide you. But to see it, you must stop trying to control it. You must release your obsession with outcomes. You must stop forcing and start allowing. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. Life is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a mystery to be lived. And living it fully means being where you are, not where you think you should be. So when you feel lost, return to now. When you feel anxious, return to now. When you feel disconnected, return to now and ask gently, what is this moment trying to teach me? Do not demand an answer. Do not force a meaning. Simply listen, breathe, be with it, and slowly the message will rise, not from outside you, but from within. Because the moment itself is the message. And the awareness you bring to it is the key that unlocks its wisdom. You do not need more time. You need more presence. You do not need more proof. You need more trust. You do not need more to arrive. You need to arrive to what already is. This is the secret. This is the way. The message you are waiting for is hidden in the moment you are ignoring.